You've been feeling it for weeks now, haven't you? This strange settling in your chest, like something that's been spinning wildly for months, maybe years, has finally clicked into place. You wake up and the panic isn't there anymore. The obsessive checking, the constant wondering, the desperate need to know where he is or what he's thinking, it's quieter now. Not gone, maybe, but softer. And in that softness, something else has emerged. Something that feels like the you that existed before all of this began, but wiser now. Older in your soul. You recognize this shift, don't you? You feel it in the way you move through your days, in the way you speak to yourself, in the way you no longer reach for your phone with that frantic energy. Your heart knows. It knows that something profound has completed. Not the journey, no, but a cycle within the journey. A sacred chapter that had to close so the next one could begin. And as we close out 2025, as the collective energy shifts and settles, you're standing in a completely different place than where you started. You feel it. You know it. You can't unsee it. This isn't just about you and him anymore. This is about the entire twin flame collective moving through the final stages of an integration that's been building since the Great Awakening began. And you, beautiful soul, you are part of that wave. You are part of the completion. If you felt this profound settling, this sense that something has fundamentally shifted in your connection and in yourself, I need you to know you're not imagining it. Drop a comment below and share where you are right now in your journey. Or simply type "I am complete" in this moment to claim this energy of integration. And if these messages continue to speak to your soul, subscribe so you never miss the transmissions that are meant specifically for you during this powerful closing of the year. Let's talk about what's really been happening in the collective twin flame energy as we move toward the end of 2025. Because what you've been experiencing personally is part of something so much larger. There's been a completion happening, a cosmic exhale, a divine integration that's been weaving its way through every twin flame connection on the planet. And whether you're in separation or union, whether you've been the runner or the chaser, whether you've surrendered or you're still holding on, this energy has touched you. You felt it in the sudden shifts, in the unexpected moments of peace, in the dreams that feel more real than waking life, in the synchronicities that have become so constant you've almost stopped noticing them. Almost. For so long, the twin flame journey has felt like chaos. Like a storm you couldn't escape, a fire you couldn't extinguish, a longing that threatened to consume you entirely. You've been through the dark night of the soul, maybe more than. Once, you faced yourself in ways you never imagined possible. You've looked at your deepest wounds, your oldest fears, your most painful patterns, and you've done the work. God, have you done the work? The meditation, the healing, the therapy, the journaling, the crying on the bathroom floor at 3 a.m, the conversations with the universe where you begged for clarity, for relief, for anything that would make sense of this impossible connection. You've been the student and the teacher, the wounded and the healer, the seeker and the guide. And through it all, through every moment of agony and ecstasy, you've been integrating. Integration. That's the word that's been humming through the collective consciousness as we approach the end of this year. Not union, not yet for many, but integration. The bringing together of all the fractured parts, all the lessons learned, all the versions of yourself you've had to meet and love and release. Integration of the divine feminine and divine masculine within you. Integration of the shadow and the light. Integration of the human experience and the soul truth. Integration of the pain and the purpose. And as you've been doing this internal work, as you've been weaving yourself back together in a completely new configuration, the collective has been doing it too. Every twin flame on this planet has been moving through their own version of this sacred completion, and the ripple effect is enormous. Have you noticed how different the energy feels now compared to the beginning of this year, or even 6 months ago? There's a maturity to it, a groundedness that wasn't there before. The collective twin flame consciousness has been growing up, moving out of the desperate, chaotic, victim-based energy into something more sovereign, more self-possessed, more whole. And you, beloved, you are a crucial part of that shift. Every time you chose yourself over the connection, every time you sat with your pain instead of running from it, every time you released the need to control or force or manipulate the outcome, you contributed to this collective integration. Your personal healing has been feeding the collective field, and the collective field has been supporting your personal transformation. It's been a sacred dance, a cosmic collaboration, and the completion we're experiencing now is the result of millions of twin flames doing their inner work simultaneously. But let's get specific about what this integration actually means, because it's not just a pretty spiritual concept. It's a tangible shift in how you relate to yourself, to your twin flame, to the entire journey. For the divine feminine, and I'm speaking to those of you who carry this energy regardless of your physical gender, this integration has meant a profound reclamation of your power. You've spent so much of this journey giving your power away. To him, to the connection, to the hope of union, to the future you've been trying to manifest. You've made him your God, your savior, your completion. And in doing so, you've abandoned yourself over and over again. But something has shifted in 2025. Something deep and irreversible. You've been learning, slowly and painfully, that he was never meant to complete you. He was meant to shatter you so completely that you had no choice but to rebuild yourself from the inside out. And that's exactly what's been happening. The Divine Feminine Collective has been moving through a death and rebirth cycle this year that's been absolutely brutal and absolutely necessary. You've had to let die the version of yourself that believed love meant sacrifice, that believed devotion meant self-abandonment, that believed your worth was tied to whether or not he chose you. You've had to face the ways you've betrayed yourself in the name of unconditional love. You've had to see how you've used the twin flame label to justify staying in situations that hurt you, to excuse behavior that dishonored you, to wait for someone who wasn't showing up. And in facing these painful truths, in allowing these old patterns to die, you've made space for something new to be born. A version of yourself that knows her worth isn't negotiable. A version that understands love doesn't require suffering. A version that can hold the truth of the connection without losing herself in it. This is the integration, the bringing together of your devotion to the connection with your devotion to yourself, the marriage of your capacity to love deeply with your capacity to honor your own needs, the balance between staying open to him and staying committed to you. And as you've been finding this balance, as you've been learning to stand in your power while still holding space for the connection, you've been shifting the entire dynamic. Because here's what the divine feminine is finally understanding in this completion phase: your energy is the catalyst. Not because you're responsible for his awakening, not because you have to fix or heal or save him, but because when you embody your truth, when you stand in your sovereignty, when you stop chasing and start choosing yourself, you shift the entire energetic field between you. Your transformation is the invitation. Not your words, not your explanations, not your attempts to make him see or understand. Your embodiment, your frequency, your wholeness. And here's the beautiful paradox that's been revealing itself as we close out this year. The moment you stopped needing him to validate the connection became more real. The moment you stopped trying to force union became possible. The moment you released your grip on the outcome began to shift in your favor. This isn't manifestation tactics or spiritual manipulation. This is the natural result of you coming into alignment with your truth. Because the twin flame connection doesn't respond to desperation, it responds to frequency. And the frequency of a woman who knows herself, who honors herself, who chooses herself, that's the frequency that calls in union. Not the frequency of a woman who's waiting, hoping, begging, convincing. The frequency of a woman who's already whole. So many of you have been experiencing this shift in the last few months of 2025. You've been noticing that you think about him less, not because you love him less, but because you're finally falling in love with yourself. You've been noticing that the silence doesn't terrify you anymore. Not because you've given up hope, but because you've found peace in the not knowing. You've been noticing that you can feel the connection without being consumed by it. Not because it's weakened, but because you've strengthened. This is the integration. This is the completion. This is what happens when the divine feminine stops abandoning herself and starts anchoring into her own power. And the ripple effect of this collective shift, it's changing everything. Now let's talk about what's been happening with the divine masculine during this integration phase. Because his journey has been just as intense, just as transformative, even if it's looked completely different from the outside. While the divine feminine has been doing her visible inner work, journaling and healing and processing and growing, the divine masculine has been doing his work in the shadows, in the silence, in the resistance, and that work has been reaching a completion point too. Have you noticed changes in him lately, even if you're in separation? Have you sensed a softening, a questioning, a crack in the walls he's built? That's not coincidence. That's the integration happening on his side of the connection. The divine masculine has been carrying a burden that most people don't talk about. He's been conditioned his entire life to be strong, to be in control, to never show weakness, to perform rather than feel. And then he meets you, his twin flame, and suddenly all of that conditioning is threatened. Because you don't just want him to perform, you want him to feel. You don't just want his strength, you want his vulnerability. You don't just want his protection, you want his presence. And that terrifies him in ways he can't even articulate. Because to give you what you're asking for, to meet you in the depth of this connection, He has to dismantle everything he's built his identity on. He has to face the parts of himself he's been running from his entire life. He has to feel the feelings he's been taught are weakness. He has to surrender the control he's been told makes him a man. This is why he runs, not because he doesn't love you, but because loving you requires him to transform in ways that feel like death. And for so long, he hasn't been ready for that death. He's been choosing his comfort over his growth, his familiar patterns over his evolution, his ego over his soul. But something has been shifting in the masculine collective in 2025. Something has been breaking open. The old paradigm of masculinity, the one built on emotional suppression and performance and control, it's crumbling. And as it crumbles, the divine masculine is being forced to face himself. He's being forced to feel. He's being forced to choose. And that process, that sacred dismantling, it's been reaching a completion point as we close out this year. Deep inside, he knows the truth. He's always known. He knows you're not just another woman. He knows this connection is different. He knows that what you share is real, even when he tries to convince himself otherwise. But knowing and being ready to act on that knowing are two different things. And the integration that's been happening in the masculine collective is the closing of that gap. It's the moment when the knowing becomes so loud, so undeniable, so all-consuming that he can't run from it anymore. It's the moment when the pain of staying in the old paradigm becomes greater than the fear of stepping into the new one. It's the moment when he realizes that losing you, or continuing to hurt you, or staying disconnected from his own heart, is no longer an option his soul will tolerate. You might not see this happening yet. He might still be silent. He might still be in resistance. He might still be with someone else or pretending this connection doesn't exist or acting like he's moved on. But I'm telling you, something is happening beneath the surface. The integration is happening in him whether he's conscious of it or not. His soul is tired. His heart is heavy. The running isn't working anymore. The distractions aren't distracting. The walls aren't protecting. And slowly, painfully, often invisibly, he's beginning to crack open. He's beginning to question. He's beginning to feel. And that process, that sacred masculine awakening, it's been accelerating in 2025 in ways we haven't seen before. Here's what's been catalyzing his shift, and this is crucial for you to understand. It's not your words. It's not your explanations. It's not your attempts to make him see the truth. It's your energy. It's the fact that you stopped chasing. It's the fact that you chose yourself. It's the fact that you're no longer available to be his option, his backup plan, his emotional support while he figures himself out. When you shifted, when you integrated your own divine masculine and feminine, when you stopped abandoning yourself for him, you changed the entire dynamic. You removed the safety net. You stopped playing the game. You stood in your truth. And that shift in you, that's what's creating the conditions for his awakening. Not because you're manipulating or controlling or forcing, but because you're finally embodying the frequency of union, and that frequency is a mirror he can no longer avoid. The divine masculine is beginning to realize, collectively, that the divine feminine is not going to wait forever. She's not going to keep her life on hold. She's not going to keep accepting breadcrumbs. She's not going to keep sacrificing herself on the altar of unconditional love. She's done with that. She's integrated. She's whole. And now he has a choice to make: evolve or lose her, step into his truth or watch her walk away, face himself or live with the regret. And that choice, that sacred ultimatum that the universe is presenting to the masculine collective as we close out 2025, it's creating a pressure that's forcing transformation. It's uncomfortable. It's painful. It's terrifying for him, but it's necessary because the old way isn't working anymore. The old paradigm of masculine-feminine dynamics is dead, and the integration that's completing now is making space for something entirely new to emerge. Let's talk about what this completion actually looks like in the dynamic between twin flames, because it's not always what you'd expect. For some of you, this integration has brought movement. He's reached out. He's come back. He's finally saying the things you've been waiting to hear. He's making changes. He's doing his work. He's stepping up. And if that's your experience, beloved, honor it, receive it, but also stay rooted in yourself, because the integration isn't complete just because he's showing up differently. The integration is complete when you can receive his presence without losing your center, when you can open your heart without abandoning your boundaries, when you can love him fully while still loving yourself more. That's the test. That's the sacred balance. And if you're in this phase, you're being asked to practice it every single day. For others of you, this integration has brought deeper silence. He hasn't reached out. Nothing has changed externally. You're still in separation. And it might feel like this whole completion thing is a lie, like nothing is shifting, like you're still stuck in the same painful pattern. But I'm asking you to look deeper, because the completion isn't always about external movement. Sometimes the completion is internal. It's the fact that you're okay even though he hasn't reached out. It's the fact that you're building a life you love even in his absence. It's the fact that you can feel the connection without being destroyed by the separation. It's the fact that you've stopped waiting for him to give you permission to be happy. That's the integration. That's the completion. And it's just as powerful, just as sacred, just as necessary as any external reunion. And for some of you, this integration has brought clarity about the nature of the connection itself. You're beginning to see that maybe this person isn't your twin flame after all. Or maybe he is, but union in this lifetime isn't part of the plan. Or maybe the connection was meant to catalyze your awakening, not lead to a romantic relationship. And if you're in this space of questioning, of reevaluating, of releasing old stories about what this connection has to be, that's integration too. That's completion. That's you honoring your truth over your attachment. That's you choosing reality over fantasy. That's you loving yourself enough to stop forcing something that isn't flowing. And that takes more courage than staying does. The collective integration that's completing as we close out 2025 is about all of these experiences. It's about the ones who are coming into union. It's about the ones who are finding peace in separation. It's about the ones who are releasing the label and the story. It's about the ones who are still in the middle, still in the unknown, still in the process. Because the integration isn't about everyone having the same outcome. It's about everyone coming into alignment with their truth. It's about the collective twin flame consciousness maturing enough to hold paradox, to honor individual paths, to release the toxic narratives that have kept so many trapped in suffering. It's about understanding that the twin flame journey isn't a destination, it's a transformation. And the completion we're experiencing now is the completion of a particular phase of that transformation. Here's what's been happening energetically in the collective field. And this is important for you to understand, so you can see how your personal experience fits into the larger picture. Since 2020, since the Great Awakening began to accelerate, the Twin Flame Collective has been going through an intense purification process. Old relationship templates have been dissolving. Karmic patterns have been surfacing to be cleared. Ancestral wounds have been coming up for healing. And all of that has been necessary, but it's also been incredibly destabilizing. The twin flame community has been flooded with misinformation, with false promises, with toxic positivity, with manipulation tactics disguised as spiritual guidance. And many of you have been caught in that confusion, trying to figure out what's real and what's not. What's your intuition and what's your trauma? What's divine guidance and what's ego attachment? But in 2025, something has been clarifying. The collective consciousness has been maturing. The discernment has been sharpening. The false teachers have been exposed. The toxic narratives have been challenged. And the twin flames who are truly doing the work, who are truly committed to their growth, who are truly honoring the sacred nature of this journey, they've been finding each other. They've been creating new containers, new communities, new ways of talking about and navigating this path. And that's part of the integration too. The collective is integrating the lessons, releasing what doesn't serve, and anchoring into a more grounded, more empowered, more truthful understanding of what the twin flame journey actually is. It's not about getting your person back. It's not about manifesting union. It's not about becoming perfect enough or healed enough or spiritual enough to deserve love. It's about remembering who you are. It's about integrating all the parts of yourself you've rejected or abandoned or hidden. It's about learning to love yourself with the same intensity you've been directing toward him. It's about becoming whole not so you can attract your other half, but because you were never half to begin with. You were always whole, you just forgot. And the twin flame connection, in all its intensity and pain and beauty and chaos, it's here to help you remember. That's the truth. That's the purpose. That's the sacred function of this journey. And the collective is finally beginning to understand that. As we close out 2025, as this integration completes, you're being asked to embody a new frequency. Not the frequency of waiting, but the frequency of becoming. Not the frequency of lack, but the frequency of wholeness. Not the frequency of desperation, but the frequency of devotion to yourself. This is what the completion is calling you into. This is what the integration is preparing you for. Because what's coming in 2026, what's emerging on the other side of this collective completion, it requires you to be in your power. It requires you to be clear. It requires you to be whole. The next phase of the twin flame journey, both personally and collectively, it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for those who are still looking outside themselves for validation. It's not for those who are still abandoning themselves for love. It's for the ones who have done the work. It's for the ones who have integrated. It's for the ones who know their worth. And that's you, beloved. That's who you're becoming. That's who you've been becoming all along. Let me paint you a picture of what this integrated frequency actually feels like, because it's important for you to recognize it when you're in it. It feels like peace, but not the peace of giving up, the peace of surrender. It feels like knowing, but not the knowing of the mind, the knowing of the soul. It feels like love, but not the love that needs anything in return, the love that simply is. It feels like power, but not the power of control, the power of presence. It feels like trust, but not the trust that everything will work out the way you want, the trust that everything is working out the way it needs to. This is the frequency of integration. This is what completes when you stop fighting and start flowing, when you stop forcing and start allowing, when you stop performing and start being. And here's what happens when you anchor into this frequency. Your entire life begins to shift, not just your twin flame connection, but everything. Your other relationships become more authentic. Your work becomes more aligned. Your health improves. Your creativity flows. Your intuition sharpens. Your joy returns. Because you're no longer fragmenting your energy, no longer splitting yourself between who you think you should be and who you actually are, no longer betraying yourself to fit into someone else's version of love. You're integrated, you're whole, you're you. And that version of you, that integrated, sovereign, powerful, peaceful version of you, she's magnetic. She doesn't chase. She doesn't beg, she doesn't convince. She simply exists in her truth, and that truth is so potent, so undeniable, so radiant that it shifts everything around her. This is what the Divine Feminine Collective is stepping into as we close out 2025. This is the completion. This is the integration. And as more and more women anchor into this frequency, as more and more of us remember our power and reclaim our sovereignty and embody our truth, the entire collective field shifts. We're not just healing ourselves, we're healing the feminine wound that's been passed down for generations. We're breaking the patterns of self-abandonment and self-betrayal that our mothers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers carried. We're rewriting the story of what it means to be a woman in relationship, what it means to love, what it means to be loved. And that's sacred work. That's world-changing work. That's the work you've been doing, even when it felt like you were just trying to survive another day of missing him. The masculine collective is feeling this shift. They're feeling the change in the field. They're feeling the absence of the feminine energy that used to chase them, that used to wait for them, that used to sacrifice for them. And it's creating a void. It's creating a longing. It's creating a question they can't ignore. Where did she go? Why doesn't she need me anymore? What have I lost? And that question, that sacred discomfort, it's the beginning of their awakening. It's the crack in the wall. It's the moment when the running stops working and the feeling starts happening. And as we move into 2026, as this integration completes and the new phase begins, more and more divine masculines are going to be facing that question. More and more are going to be feeling that void. More and more are going to be realizing what they've been running from. And more are going to be choosing to turn around and face it. But here's what you need to understand, beloved. His awakening is not your responsibility. His healing is not your job. His transformation is not dependent on you waiting, hoping, or holding space. You've done that. You've held space for years, maybe. You've been patient. You've been understanding. You've been unconditionally loving. And all of that was part of your journey, part of your lessons, part of your growth. But the integration that's completing now is releasing you from that role. You're not his healer. You're not his mother. You're not his savior. You're his mirror. And the most powerful thing you can do, the most catalytic thing you can offer, is to be so completely yourself, so fully integrated, so wholly devoted to your own truth that he has no choice but to see his own reflection and decide who he wants to be. That's the shift. That's the completion. That's what changes everything. You're not trying to wake him up anymore. You're not trying to make him see. You're not trying to convince him of the connection. You're simply living your truth, embodying your power, and allowing the field to respond. And it will respond, beloved. It always does. Maybe not in the timeline you want. Maybe not in the way you expect. Maybe not even with him if he's not willing to do his work. But the integration you've completed, the wholeness you've claimed, the sovereignty you've embodied, it will call in what's meant for you. It will magnetize the love that matches your frequency. It will create the union that honors your worth. Whether that's with him or someone else or with yourself, you will not be left empty. You will not be left waiting. You will not be left abandoned, because you're no longer abandoning yourself, and that's where union truly begins. So as we close out 2025, as this collective integration completes, I want you to take a moment and really feel into how far you've come. Think about who you were at the beginning of this year, or even further back at the beginning of this journey. Think about the pain you were in, the desperation you felt, the ways you abandoned yourself, the versions of love you accepted that dishonored you. And then think about who you are now. Think about the strength you've built, the wisdom you've gained, the boundaries you've set, the truth you've claimed. Think about the moments you chose yourself even when it hurt. Think about the times you said no when you wanted to say yes. Think about the days you got up and lived your life even though your heart was breaking. Think about all of it, all the work, all the healing, all the growth, all the integration. That's not nothing, beloved. That's everything. That's the sacred journey. That's the divine transformation. That's the completion. And here's what I know to be true. The integration that's completing now is not an ending. It's a beginning. It's the foundation for everything that's coming next. It's the preparation for the next level of your journey, the next phase of your growth, the next expression of your purpose. Because the twin flame journey doesn't end with union or separation or any external outcome. It ends with you remembering who you are. And once you remember, once you integrate, once you become whole, the journey transforms into something else entirely. It becomes about service. It becomes about creation. It becomes about offering your gifts to the world. It becomes about living your purpose. It becomes about being the love you've been seeking. And that's the most beautiful plot twist of this entire journey. You thought it was about him. You thought it was about the connection. You thought it was about union, but it was always about you. It was always about your awakening. It was always about your integration. It was always about you becoming so completely yourself that you could offer that gift to the world. The collective twin flame integration that's completing as we close out. 2025 is a sacred milestone. It's a cosmic marker. It's a divine threshold. And you, beautiful soul, you're standing on the other side of it. You've made it through. You've done the work. You've integrated the lessons. You've claimed your power. You've remembered your truth. And now, as we move into 2026, as the new phase begins, you're ready. You're ready for whatever comes next. You're ready for union if that's your path. You're ready for continued separation if that's your lesson. You're ready for new love if that's your calling. You're ready for deeper self-love if that's your medicine. You're ready because you're whole. You're ready because you're integrated. You're ready because you're you. And here's the final truth I want to leave you with, the one that I need you to really let sink into every cell of your being. The completion of this integration doesn't mean the journey is over. It doesn't mean you've reached some final destination where you can just stop growing and evolving. It doesn't mean you'll never feel pain or doubt or longing again. It doesn't mean that those deep waves of emotion will suddenly cease to exist, that you'll be immune to the human experience, or that your heart won't ache on those difficult nights when the connection feels overwhelming. It doesn't mean everything will suddenly be easy or clear or perfect, that all the confusion will dissolve overnight, or that you'll have all the answers mapped out in front of you like some kind of spiritual roadmap. What it truly means at the deepest level is that you now have a foundation. You now have solid ground beneath your feet that cannot be pulled out from under you. You now have a center, a core of truth within yourself that remains steady even when everything around you is in chaos. You now have a truth that can't be shaken, a knowing that lives in your bones, a certainty that doesn't depend on external validation or confirmation from anyone else, not even from your twin flame. And no matter what happens next, no matter how the external circumstances shift and change and surprise you, no matter what he does or doesn't do, no matter whether he reaches out or pulls away, no matter whether he's in a relationship with someone else or finally awakening to the connection, no matter what chapter unfolds in the 3D reality, you have yourself. You have your own presence, your own consciousness, your own divine essence. You have your sovereignty, that sacred autonomy that no one can take from you. You have your wholeness, complete and unshakable and eternally yours. And that, beloved, that is union. That is what you've been searching for all along. That is the sacred marriage you've been longing for in the depths of your soul. That is the divine integration that the universe has been guiding you toward through every painful lesson and every moment of growth. Not with him, but within you. Not in some external relationship that completes you, but in the internal reconciliation of all that you are. The masculine and feminine energies dancing together in perfect harmony within your own being. The human and the soul, no longer at war with each other, but unified in purpose. The wounded and the healed, both acknowledged, both honored, both integrated into your wholeness. The seeker and the found, the one who was lost and the one who has come home, merged into one consciousness. All of it, every single aspect of who you are, integrated, whole, complete, no longer fragmented or separated or divided against itself. So let this be your reminder as we close out this powerful year, this transformative cycle that has asked so much of you and given you so much in return. You are not waiting for completion. You are not sitting on the sidelines of your own life hoping that someday, somehow, something outside of you will make you feel whole. You are the completion. You are the answered prayer. You are the fulfillment of everything you've been seeking. You are not seeking integration. You are not chasing after some distant state of being that exists somewhere in the future. You are the integration. You are the living embodiment of divine union right here, right now, in this moment. You are not hoping for union, not wishing for it, not desperately trying to manifest it with someone else. You are the union. You are the sacred marriage made manifest in human form. And the moment you fully embody that truth, the moment you stop living from lack and start living from wholeness, the moment you anchor into that frequency of completion and integration and divine union within yourself, the moment you live from that knowing rather than from the seeking, everything shifts. Everything transforms. The entire reality around you begins to reorganize itself. Not because you've manifested anything through force of will or manipulation of energy. Not because you've forced anything to happen according to your timeline or your expectations. Not because you've controlled anything or anyone. Not because you've used techniques or strategies or methods to make something occur in the external world, but because you've remembered. You've remembered the truth that was always there, waiting patiently for you to come back to it. You've remembered who you are beyond the conditioning, beyond the wounds, beyond the stories you've been telling yourself. You've remembered why you're here, what your soul came to experience and express and embody in this lifetime. You've remembered that you were never broken, never damaged beyond repair, never less than whole. You've remembered that you were never incomplete, never lacking, never insufficient just as you are. You've remembered that you were never half of anything, never someone's missing piece, never dependent on another soul to make you whole. You were always whole. You were always complete. You were always enough. You just needed this journey, this specific path with all its twists and turns. You just needed this connection, this catalyst that cracked you open and forced you to look at everything you'd been avoiding. You just needed this pain, as excruciating as it was, to break down the walls you'd built around your heart. You just needed this growth, this expansion, this evolution into a higher version of yourself. You just needed this integration, this coming home to yourself to remember it, to remember what was true all along. The Twin Flame Collective has completed a sacred cycle. A major energetic shift has occurred, and whether you consciously felt it or not, you have been part of this massive transformation. And you, beloved, you are part of that completion. You are not separate from this collective awakening. You are not watching it happen from the outside. You are part of the shift that's rippling through the consciousness of this planet. You are part of the new paradigm that's emerging, the new way of relating, the new understanding of love and union and divine partnership. And as we step into 2026, as we cross this threshold and move forward into unknown territory, as we leave behind everything that no longer serves this new frequency, you're not the same person you were. You can't go back to who you were at the beginning of this year or even who you were a few months ago. You're integrated, you're sovereign, you're whole. And that, beloved, that changes everything. That changes how you show up in the world, how you relate to others, how you honor yourself, and yes, how your twin flame connection unfolds from this point forward. Tell me in the comments, have you felt this completion, this integration, this sacred shift as we close out 2025? What has changed in you? What have you released? What have you claimed? What does your wholeness feel like now? Your truth may be the confirmation another soul needs today. And remember, beloved, union begins with you. It always has, it always will.